Warren's comments follow a letter she wrote to the now former SVB CEO asking him, quote, given the failure of SVB, will you agree to return any bonuses or compensation that you have received in the last 5 years, end quote. Joining us now is Wyoming Senator and member of the Senate Banking Committee is Cynthia Lummis. Senator Lummis, thank you for joining us. Do you agree with your Democratic colleague? Should we have a clawback of this pay or just ride it out?
Oh, I think clawback makes sense here, as do a lot of other issues. It's been known for a while that these banks were poorly managed, and the regulators also missed the boat on these. There were signs.
Well, my personal opinion, I think they should pay there should be a clawback because they knew, like you said, of these issues, these troubles, that the bank was poorly managed from the beginning, and they still went ahead and gave them bonuses for work that, for poor work. So let's listen to what else she has to say on that.
That these institutions needed some regulatory scrutiny, and they didn't get it. And we know the Fed had the authority to do the necessary scrutiny and failed to do so.
Yeah, and of course, like everything else, Senator, this has been politicized. And before anybody actually knew anything, we already heard the mantra, and I've heard it in the media as well, where, if we didn't have that rollback of the Dodd-Frank regulations in 2018, this would never have happened.
During the Obama-Biden administration, we put in place tough requirements on banks like Sillicon Valley Bank and Signature Bank, including the Dodd-Frank law to make sure that the crisis we saw in 2008 would not happen again. Unfortunately, the last administration rolled back some of these requirements. I'm going to ask Congress and the banking regulators to strengthen the rules for banks to make it less likely this kind of bank failure would happen again, and to protect American jobs and small businesses. Look, the bottom line is this. Americans can rest assured that our banking system is safe. Your deposits are safe. Let me also assure you, we will not stop at this. We'll do whatever is needed.
I have spoken to exactly 0 people that are nonpartisan banking experts who believe that. They said I spoke to 4 yesterday. 3 said had no impact because they probably would have passed the stress test anyway, leverage capital ratios, et cetera. And 1 said probably not, but let's try to figure out the...
Probably not, probably will. Politicians, right? So you never know which side they're in, right? They'll tell you one thing and then they'll tell you another thing. So it's like they're letting you choose to decide what it is that you want. So you got to expect that from them.
Latest stress tests get news before we know. Why has this devolved into something around a rollback of a rule that, by the way, could have been unrolled back over the last 2 years?
Yeah, that rule didn't have anything to do with this. That is just subterfuge, trying to change the subject. Even Barney Frank of Dodd-Frank said that didn't have anything to do with it. This was a liquidity issue. And the Fed did have the authority it needed to go in and investigate. So I hope the Fed will look at it, and I think Congress should too. So I think there needs to be some oversight by Congress. These banks were poorly managed, and then
in all honesty, I think it's a combination of all three. The rollback, the fact that they were poorly managed, and there was no barriers to stop these people from doing what it is that they wanted to do. So they got aggressive when the regulations were allowed them some leeway, and they took it off and then they ran with it. So and that's what happened now.
Regulators who had some indication that that was the case didn't use their existing authority to go in and validate that. And here we are today in a situation where now other financial institutions may need to help bail out depositors who had deposits in excess of the $250,000 limit on FDIC insurance. I don't think that's fair. I think small banks, community banks, who have depositors, almost all of which are under $250,000 per account, they shouldn't have to bail out these banks that were taking much higher risk, and depositors who were taking much higher risk.
SVB was taking high risk. That's why they ended up in the situation that they did.
And knew they were taking that risk.
Yeah. And by the way, even if that rollback did have something to do with this, which most people I talk to don't think it did, but even if it did, if you've basically got control of the House and the Senate and the White House for full 2 years, you think if it's a priority, you could have gotten it done because you basically had a single party system. All right, Senator, I've got to get your thoughts on some breaking news right now regarding TikTok. Totally different issue. Senator, the Wall Street Journal reporting the Biden administration is telling TikTok's Chinese-owned parent, it's called ByteDance, to sell its stake in TikTok or face a total ban. Your reaction?
I think they're right. I think that there's too much information that we have that TikTok has connections to the CCP.
If it's a matter of national security, and which the senator says it is, they should really ban TikTok flat out. And because you know what, they can use it for malicious purposes, and they're using it to collect data on the American individuals. So yeah, I'm personally, I'm with them. I really don't care about TikTok or like that. But for national security, yeah, definitely go ahead and do away with TikTok.
The Chinese Communist Party, and quite frankly, Americans got all upset when that balloon flew over the United States some weeks ago. But on this phone that everybody has, TikTok is able to harvest your data all the time and provide it through ByteDance to the Chinese Communist Party. So I think it is important. And I support Marco Rubio's bill.
Senator,
to
I
address
think
it
used to be a little more sort of centrist about it, or at least maybe not as hard line. What has changed on TikTok?
Well, I think that our concern about China, about their ability to surveil Americans, about their interest in having a central bank digital yuan.
That's actually not going to stop surveillance from one country to another country. Those things are not going to stop. We really don't know how many apps in the App Store or the Google Play Store that is from Chinese founders and the government is using for malicious purposes. You really don't know that, right? So, but as the government says, the U.S. government, that, you know, they believe that China is using TikTok to spy on the Americans, so they have more information than we do. So let's do away with it.
That can surveil its users. Its ubiquitous response to gaining control over strategic minerals all over the world. Its oppression of groups in China. The lies that they told about the origins of the Wuhan virus, COVID-19, these are all indications that China's best interests are not our best interests.